Hey YouTube, this is Magician34, and I have a hero deck for you. This is what some people call Omni-Heroes. It's basically just revolving around the heroes, the elemental hero fusions that use a monster of just some element and then an E-hero to make the fusion. Starts off with 3 copies of Neos Alias. It's just an excellent monster for the deck. 1 copy of E-Hero Stratos. 1 copy of E-Hero Ocean. This guy is really quite good. 1 copy of Evocator Chevalier, basically because he's a Gemini and he's also a fire attribute, which allows you to make Elemental Hero Nova just a little bit easier. Next, we're running 3 copies of Thunder King Ryo. He's a great anti-meta card, a good 1900 point beat stick, and the light attribute helps you too. One thing that's not very common to this particular archetype, but I am running it, is King Tiger Wong Hu. 2 copies of this guy. He's Earth attribute, which helps you make Gaia, who's actually a pretty good hero fusion. But also he locks out a lot of meta decks. Some decks just find this guy almost impossible to get over. He's really bad for a lot of decks to have to deal with. Plus the 1700 attack is just enough that he gets away from things like, say, Jurak Guaiba, and they're forced to like suicide into it, which is quite good. We also have 1 copy of Gores, because you can set up for a Gores play pretty easily. 1 copy of Honest. Obviously, we have a lot of light monsters. This can help us make big pushes. And 2 copies of Effect Veiler. It's your only tuner, other than ones you might be able to steal with Monster Reborn. But it's getting to the point now with the new meta where Effect Veiler is definitely kind of a must-have. We're running 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army. Helps you go get your Stratos or Alias. And speaking of which, we also have 3 copies of E-Emergency Call. Of course, you can also use Roto to go get Evocator Chevalier if you want, and obviously E-Call can't do that. But for the most part, what you do with all those searchers is you go get Stratos, who goes and gets you an Alias. We're also running 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Yes, it's the one that makes you discard a card, but they can't respond to it, so they can't warn it or solemn judge it or anything like that. And the fact that it steals away a card from your opponent basically means that when you activate this, assuming you're using 1 monster of yours and 1 of theirs, it's only a -1, and what you make with the Super Poly is almost surely going to get you that extra card back and maybe more. So it actually really does pay for itself, and you've almost always got something in your hand because this deck generates a fairly decent amount of card advantage. You'll almost always be able to pay the cost without any real worries. And you can make all kinds of good stuff. The only decks that are really challenging are the few that are like, heavy dark, like maybe Inzectors. But yeah, that's what your side deck is for. We also run 2 copies of Miracle Fusion. The Shining is obviously one of your best targets for this card. We're also running 3 copies of Gemini Spark. Even though there are only 4 Geminis in the deck, obviously you have a million ways to go get them and retrieve them and whatnot. Firing this card off isn't a problem, and it also helps power through your deck by drawing you cards. 1 copy of Book of Moon. This can help you run over things and keep your monsters from getting killed. Dark Hole. Monster Reborn. 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. Basically, the idea with this one is it's more of a mid to late game card, and you're going to put your fusions and whatnot back into your extra deck, is a lot of what you're going to use this for. You can also, if you get this and it's not such a good draw, you can always feed it to your Super Polymerization. I mean, no such thing as a wasted card there. 1 copy of Heavy Storm, obviously. 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. 2 copies of Solemn Warning. Solemn Judgment, the life point cost, I didn't want to go for it in this build, but we are running 2 warnings. When played on the right target, they can be very powerful. 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Devices can help you get over certain monster threats that can be very difficult to deal with otherwise. Things like Zenmain and Gachi are easily dealt with. I'm proxying for 3 Safe Zones because I don't have them right now, honestly, but this is 3 copies of Safe Zone. This card just absolutely makes the deck. You can chain it to stuff to neutralize their card. Helps you get over, Dark Hole, Torrential, Mirror Force, things like that can be really irritating. And you can still beat their stuff, and it goes very well with virtually all your fusion targets. Speaking of which, we're running 2 copies of The Shining. Well, Elemental Hero The Shining, but you already knew that. 2 copies of Absolute Zero. 2 copies of Nova Master, who's actually quite good. especially with safe zone. This guy's really scary with safe zone because then it comes to the point where they just almost can't even afford to play monsters because you're just hitting them and drawing cards, hitting them and drawing cards. 2 copies of Great Tornado. 2 copies of E-Hero Gaia. 1 copy of Vision Hero Trinity. This guy's basically just a nice late game option with a lot of power. You can Miracle Fuse into this guy, and he's a 5,000 attack point monster who attacks 3 times. I mean, this guy can easily spell game for your opponent, so he's too good to not run. 1 copy of Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, just because we can sync for 9, and obviously he's going to be your 9-star target of choice. Stardust Dragon, it's a close call between him and Scrap Dragon, but I think Stardust won out slightly because he's got some pretty good usefulness right now coming up. So I think Stardust goes a little better than Scrap for me. This is obviously Gore's plus Effect Veiler. Ally of Justice Catastrophe is your 5-star target. That's your Veiler plus a 4-star. And then 1 copy of number 39 Utopia. Obviously that's just your overlay. But the fusions and the synchros and the Ixies monsters, really, you hardly ever even hit them. So it's not really even, really, these guys are almost not even worth talking about because mostly it's just the fusions that matter. So anyway, this is a really good deck. I strongly advise playing this for your local. It will serve you very well. And until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.